Tonight on Pia.
You have a higher level of importance if you leave Canada and make a success for yourself in Los Angeles.
The whole X-Files possibility, I suppose, and then the whole thing that flowed from that was unlikely, unexpected.
You might get a huge trailer one day and be working with Harrison Ford, and the next day you're literally in the back alley changing for some independent film that a friend's written that you'll do anything for.
This is going to be fun. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women, merely players. That was already a cliche when Shakespeare wrote it in As You Like It. I think that's why we're so fascinated with actors. It's because they seem to be doing professionally what we all secretly think we're doing in our lives anyway, playing a character. This is the true power of actors, to hold up a mirror to humanity, revealing our true feelings and motivations and the consequences of our choices, whether we like it or not. This episode, we're going to talk to actors about acting. You'll meet Jackson Davies, probably BC's most popular comic. I worked with him recently in a comedy at the Arts Club called Becky's New Car. He's a master of timing, and he's really a fun guy to hang out with. You'll also meet Alessandro Giuliani. You probably know him from Battlestar Galactica. On the distaff side, there's my old pal from our early acting days, Janet Wright, who brings her characteristic wry humor to corner gas. And then you'll meet distinguished actor William B. Davis, AKA Cancer Man from The X-Files. So, how does it all begin, this business of being an actor? Well, as you'll see, there is no formula, but however they do it, getting started is half the fun.
I remember being in, I think it was in grade 10 or something, and having to do, we had school assemblies, and we were doing a play or something, or a little skit that I volunteered. And I remember doing something, I didn't think I did anything. Maybe I looked like I was standing funny or whatever, and I heard this big laugh, and it was, that was the kind of the eureka moment where I looked around and say, who are they, oh God, maybe they're laughing at me. This may be easier than I thought.
I'm untrained in a technical point of view. I've never been to acting school. I've never taken an acting class. But I probably saw 100 plays before the age of 10.
It was in drama in high school because that was where the girls were. I figured that out really soon in my life, that it was a place to meet the ladies.
I've always been a TV addict. Yeah. In the early days, you couldn't admit it because you had to sort of say you were into art and all that. I never did that, though. I've always loved TV.
Certainly the focus so much more now for a young actor is film and television, whereas when I started, the focus was the theater.
Let's add in artistic director Bill Millard. He parlayed one small theater into 3 big, successful houses, providing a lot of entertainment and a lot of paying jobs for actors. As well, we'll meet Ingrid Torrance, a beautiful film and television actress who also mentors young actors on film sets.
It was always sort of season by season, because that's how we existed, right? One of the first people we hired was Marlene Dixon as a publicist, and we paid her out of the coffee money. You know, we sold coffee upstairs.
I moved downtown, I got a roommate, I got the proverbial restaurant job and the beater car and an agent and photos and...
I mean, it's that whole kind of hippie type approach to it, right? As long as we work with artists we want to work with, as long as we're happy with what we're doing, as long as we have bread on the table and maybe enough money left over for a glass of wine or whatever, it's going to be fine. I mean, you know, you're in your 20s. The world is open to you.
But I think the most worrying thing is they think they can do it really quickly. You know, they really want to do 2 or 3 acting classes, a couple of audition classes, and then they think they'll be on the way to being an actor.
I went right from high school, actually left high school early to join a professional theater company. So I didn't have the background of the classics, and so I didn't look or sound like the typical actor at that particular time.
When it comes to the actual craft of it, I have done it very instinctively, I guess. I don't have a lot of tricks that I can fall back on that I learned in school.
What kind of an actor are they going to be? You know, they're not going to be Ian McKellen, they're not going to be David Suchet, they're not going to be actors with range and depth and penetration and whatever. They're going to be celebrities.
I started right away. My first year in the industry, I was working, and it never stopped. I mean, it's been coming up on 17 years, I believe, of full-time acting career that's never stopped.
Normally when you're playing, if someone's 23 on stage, they're not usually 23, and I was 21. So it was like a huge treat to get to do that. And so there have been quite a few people who've really championed me. Christopher being one of them, absolutely, especially at this point in my career especially.
You have to have the sense of rejection at all times. I mean, any other business where you go with a group of people and someone out of 10 people, only one will get it. And so you failed, and you fail a lot in this business. And you have to be able to accept that.
Rejection. I mean, rejection, you know, you just... It's, and it's out of your control. I mean, that's, even when you have work.
And it's not a matter of having a thick skin. Sure, you're going to get bad reviews, and you're going to get good reviews. I've had terrible reviews and good reviews on the same performance. So once I realized that, I went, well, you're going to have different opinions, whatever.
When I got involved with the arts committee, he said, you're crazy. You know, why would you give up a great job at the Playhouse, you know, and take on this small little theater, and, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, how are you going to have a living, you know? And this is someone who had obviously had a regular job out at UBC, so he understood the risks. And I said, well, you know, I can't think about that.
I happened to be reading Joseph Campbell at the time, and one of the things that he was talking about was, in order to be a man, there are things that you have to do, and sometimes part of that is change and transformation. And one of the guidelines of that was geographical, that if you just stay in the same place, you'll literally stay in the same place. So 2 days later, I packed my bags and I went to Los Angeles to see what could happen.
That was John Piper Ferguson, a Canadian actor who lives and works in LA. He was featured in 4 films in the recent Toronto Film Festival, including the opener, Score, the hockey musical. We'll be right back with more insights on acting from our celebrity guests. There's one element that cannot be taken for granted if you're dreaming of a successful career in show business: Lady Luck. She's the gorgeous dame who appears when you least expect her and takes your breath away. When she whispers in your ear, "It's time for your big break." For Bill Davis's internationally acclaimed role in X-Files and Janet Wright's memorable performance in The Perfect Storm, the big break was no big deal. At least at first.
I guess I've had success. I never see it.
The whole X-Files possibility, I suppose, and then the whole thing that flowed from that was unlikely, unexpected. I auditioned for the pilot, and I auditioned for the senior FBI agent who had 3 lines. I didn't get that part. I got this part that had no lines, called The Cigarette Smoking Man. Oh, well, it's a gig, I'll do it. You know, probably got scale, and thought no more about it. In fact, we all thought so little of it that my agent at the time, a couple of months later, sent me a letter saying he didn't think he could do anything more for me.
They flew me to LA. It was really scary, and I had to go into this room with about 12 people, and at Warner Brothers. It was kind of exciting. But I didn't know what to do, and he basically said, one of the main reasons he wanted me in the movie was because I'm the only woman he'd seen of an age who hadn't had a facelift.
Then they put me in towards the end of season 1, and then they started giving out a little bit more and a little bit more, and And I guess the fans got really intrigued with who this character was, and they got it, and everybody got intrigued with who is this character. You see, the show didn't have a Bible, so they didn't know where it was going. They were making it up as they went along.
You know that thing when someone walks into a room, like, so now I'm on the other end of auditions a lot of time, or was, and somebody walks into a room, and right away you want them to be good because you want them in your show.
You know, it's an interesting character, you know, we like to do something with it, but, you know, can Bill Davis act? You know, so apparently there were these discussions whether Bill Davis could act or not. You know, anyway, they gave me a big scene in one episode, and I guess they figured, oh, well, yeah, I guess he can. And so it went on from there. But, yeah, it was, and of course, for me, it was just quite a complete change in my life.
For Bill Millard, the opportunity to expand his theatrical empire was a matter of being in the right place at the right time and going for it.
They had this basically competition, open competition for companies, theater companies or dance companies or even music, to make proposals for the use of these various buildings. We were accepted. And then we raised money and got the grants and whatever and opened the building. And now that opening in the October of 1979, I would say that probably is one of the most important dates for the evolution of the company, because here we went from, as I said, you know, a small company to suddenly having, you know, 2 or 3 times the size.
Once you've built a certain rapport, reputation, resume, you've worked with enough producers and directors and actors, you kind of keep working. And I think I was very fortunate to get in when I got in.
The way it happened was, sure, I maybe spearheaded it, but we had these extraordinary people like yourself, like Janet Wright, Susan Wright, you know, Winston Brecker, Jackson Davies, people who really were committed to making this work.
You know, I moved out here when I was about 20 and then got the Beachcombers as well as a lot of theater work. And the Beachcombers went for 19 years. So no, I mean, there's no other actor, not very many other actors in the world that can say they've been in the show for, I was actually only 16 of the 19.
The great thing about Battlestar was it had a huge ensemble of actors. And the other great thing about Battlestar was that they hired a lot of Canadians to be part of that ensemble right from the beginning, from the pilot. So there were maybe 5 or 6 regulars that were from abroad. And then the other 6 or 7 or 8 core members were all Vancouverites. Amazing opportunity for us.
I was shooting an episode of Lonesome Dove with Eric McCormick in Calgary, staying at a hotel there, and Bruce McDonald was directing the episode before mine, and Bruce and I were just 2 guys sitting in a bar at the hotel having a drink, and we struck up a conversation that, I don't know, lasted an hour and a half. Neither of us revealing to the other what we did for a living, because we just wanted to be in a bar, and then eventually he said, you know, do you play any instruments? And then, what are you doing here? And then we talked about that, and he basically said, I want you to be in my movie. That's how I got into Hardcore Logo.
We had the opportunity to flesh out characters that were, in my case, they knew they wanted me. They didn't necessarily know what they wanted to do with me right away, but they knew they wanted me around all the time. So I was able to kind of shape that in, over the course of seasons, to the point where I don't think I'm really going to spoil anything. By the end of the series, I was taking over the ship.
Well, I probably owe John Bartley quite a lot. Who is John Bartley? John Bartley was the lighting person, the cinematographer. And so if you look at those early episodes, I mean, he's always got me in this mysterious light and this smoke kind of...
Those space bucks bought us a house. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the house that Space built. I don't take it for granted at all. My whole theater career, you know what? That's when the theater will stop, when AJ stops being a star. I'll have to get a real job.
Stop being an H-list celebrity.
What we were being given? 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 What we were being given
It's not the cure for cancer. It's the holiest of grails, Dana. It's the cure for all human disease.
Once you've hit the big time, you have to sustain that position. And that's not so easy to do, as actors go in and out of fashion. So what is the thing that will carry you through as a lifer, keep your dream alive, and maintain your artistic edge? And you have to learn how to weather the inevitable lean years that are the flip side of the glory days.
I've always been someone who tried to create work for myself. Like I said, I write a lot of commercials. I've written a couple of films that got produced. I've produced a couple of movies of the week. And I'm always in a state of trying to find work for myself. We have to reinvent ourselves in this business constantly.
Meet Gemini Award-winning actor Vince Gale and his wife Jennifer Clement, one of our leading actresses of stage and screen.
It's the thrill of sort of what you imagine it's going to be, but there's also the hard times where you go, well, when we're both out of work, that's super challenging, because as two freelance people in this business and having a family and wanting to stay in a city like Vancouver, that's super challenging. How do you find that creative balance?
I want to make a living in this industry, and it's, a poverty level is a good year for an actor in Canada, unfortunately.
Where you used to be able to indulge one partner in doing theater because you would offset that by getting film and television work. That really doesn't exist anymore, or not to the same extent. So, theater used to be a hobby in some ways, and now it's become the mainstay of our income, and that's difficult.
I know when an actor chooses to do a play, he or she is in a sense subsidizing us, because we can't pay them, obviously, what they can earn for one day on a film.
We've been talking about a show that I'm doing now that took me 3 years to make happen, and I'm looking a year down the line at other stuff. We're constantly having to project ourselves into the future and go, okay, well, what can we do and who can we talk to about creating this? And because if you just sit around, there's very few times people are going to pick up the phone and knock on your door. You really got to create your own.
While you're at the top of your game here, I probably should have spent some more time in the States and tried to make a career there, only to raise my value here. Now, as bizarre as that sounds, that's what it is. You have a higher level of importance if you leave Canada and make a success for yourself in Los Angeles.
My life has not been about strategy, and I so deeply, greatly admire people who can do that, who have plans and ways that they're going to manifest these things that I don't.
If I'd have done the same amount of work in the States as I've done in Canada, I'd be a multi-millionaire. As it is, I'm just like a thousandaire.
I just go where it happens. A door opens and I walk through it, or I look, I walk up to the door and it's not the kind of door I want on that day, so I walk away from the door.
I took opportunities as they came, and I just kind of felt it out and felt what was right for me and what wasn't.
I've always had kind of a range of things I could do. I've never been a real specialist. I
think I learned that I had a different set of skills that I hadn't recognized. Because I had been an actor for a very long time, and obviously started to do a little directing, and then I was also teaching acting and coaching actors, and I think through all that I developed somehow some skill set that was able to come in and problem solve.
And I teach now at Vancouver Film School as an acting teacher, so I've been doing that for 5 years, so it's a new passion of mine in terms of really trying to grasp and become a good teacher and share the passion that I have for the craft.
On-set coaching I love. I fell in love with it. The idea of being asked to come in and fix, for lack of a better word, fix a problem. Here's an issue, can you go in and fix it?
I'd try to add value to what I was doing. If I was doing TV commercials, I'd make sure that I would be able to write a part of them.
It's a creative life, literally. When they said that to us, or to me anyways, at theater school, this will be a challenging life, they weren't kidding, and I'm living it now, and there's some days I'm like, holy smokes. But when you get to do what you love, I guess that's the trade-off, right?
Actors are born, not made. The smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd, it's in the blood. And no one knows that better than our own Hamlet of the hijinks, Patrick Maliha.
I don't know when it was that we decided to stop going to church and instead decided to start going to TMZ and PerezHilton.com. But if the media and television are any indicators, I believe it was sometime between Zsa Zsa Gabor and Paris Hilton. Today in LA, you can be famous for anything. It's never been easier. All you have to do is be some orange Oompa Loompa who looks like a fire hydrant with a big bouffant poof on you that would make Elvira go, "What's with the hair?" I'm looking at you, Snooki. Unless, of course, it's televised Chilean miners coming up out of a hole, which, by the way, I think people actually thought was a reality show. I understand that when I went off the air, people were saying, Guys in a Hole has been canceled. Now I've got to watch Guys Who Are Holes, called the Jersey Shore. Remember back in the old days, you had to work hard? People are walking around on Sunset Boulevard saying, "Hey, I'm in porn, everybody knows me." To which I respond, "No, you're in porn. You're just somebody who people know. It doesn't mean you're somebody that people want to know." We've got Lawrence Fishburne's daughter actually doing porn to get into the acting industry. If only she knew somebody in the business. In fact, I actually have a strong suspicion that if TMZ had been around in the times of Jesus, it would have been a horrible disaster for everybody involved. Jesus with those 12 men once again. Never wears pants, always has a long robe, and what's with that hair? And by the way, Jesus, if you're back and you find what I said offensive, I only said these words to cause a little bit of a stir so that people would know my name, and I could become famous myself. Until next time, this is the Maliha Minute, and I'm Patrick Maliha.
What goes up must come down. Actors know this better than anyone. The public gives you thumbs up 1 minute and thumbs down the next. But life is about process, not result. Success is sweet, but the real joy is in the work.
You know, I'd been in the theater all my life. You know, when I was a child, there were actors in the house. They rehearsed in our basement. So I was never in awe of a performer. And even when I worked at the National Theatre of Great Britain, I was never in awe of Laurence Olivier or whoever I might be talking to.
You might get a huge trailer one day and be working with Harrison Ford, and the next day you're literally in the back alley changing for some independent film that a friend's written that you'll do anything for, that you're getting paid a sandwich for.
I happened to be down in LA on my way to golf in Palm Springs, and I phoned my agent and said, "You know, have they cleared me yet?" And they said, no, they're still looking for an American for the part. Because I said, "Well, you know, I'm in LA. Tell them I'll go in and I'll read for them again or go and see them." And then he called me back 20 minutes later and said, "It's okay, you got it." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I just told him you're in LA." And they went, "Oh, he's in LA? We thought he was in Vancouver." "Oh, he's fine." So something you deal with as being a Canadian performer.
I also changed my look so much that for the most part, people don't pick me up from role to role. They don't know that I'm the same person who did that or that or that.
One day I went into an electronics store that shortly after the show was kind of my character was getting launched, and someone recognized me and came up to serve me, and then I noticed that he was shaking. And he said, "You know, I've never been this close to a movie star before." I thought, "Oh, really?" I almost kind of looked around. Where's the movie star? Who are we talking about here? But yeah, it's very odd. The whole celebrity world is very, very odd.
Like we went across the border to Bellingham the other day and we came back, and I'm always nervous about crossing the border even though I haven't done anything wrong. And hand the guy our passports. And he went, "Janet?" I went, "Yes." I was so scared. He said, "Do you live on the prairies? We love your show." But it's like, but you know, it unsettles me.
You know, when you talked about, you know, who's going to be a successful actor out of our group, I don't know that anybody would have said Donald Sutherland, except Donald Sutherland. And I remember it was all sort of gradually beginning to come together for him. We did a production of The Tempest, and he was playing Stefano, and he was very good in that. And I was, you know, I remember sitting beside him in the orchestra and him saying, "You know, I know I can act." And he told me later, much later, in fact, about 3 months ago, that if he got a good review from Herbert Whittaker, he was going to be an actor. And if he didn't, he was going to quit.
You can't imagine how difficult it is to be a really great actor. It's not all native talent, good looks, and a bit of luck. It's not a job you can do while thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. Passion, personality, concentration, and commitment. That's what it takes. As the great French actor Jean Moreau said, every time an actor acts, he does not hide. He exposes his self. Thanks for being with us. I'm Pia Chandel.